Welcome to Off Grid Victory. So today I want to talk to you about chainsaws, and in particular I want to talk to you about chainsaw bars. So we've all been through it. We need to replace the chain because, hey, you run your chainsaw, things just don't cut anymore, and you're like, okay, it's now time to replace that chain or to get it sharpened, whatever have you, right? But no one really thinks about the bar itself that the chain rides on. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. And I want to give you a couple tips that I find over the years has really helped me on the homestead to kind of keep the longevity of the bar going. Obviously, even chains at some point, you have to throw them away if they're too damaged, if they hit metal, blah, 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 right? Or they've been sharpened so many times that you really don't have any more material to go. Or what happens over time is that chain itself gets loose over time as it gets stretched over the bar. And so there will be a point where you can't tighten the bar anymore, right? And actually tighten the chain on the bar anymore. And so you got to get rid of your chain, right? So to help prevent all of those things, you really need bar maintenance. And so let's go through that. So over the years, I kind of laugh because, I've seen people who thought they were skilled at doing this, and they make common mistakes that anyone who has been doing chainsawing for a long time will know. So that first tip is rotate your bar. So what do I mean by that? So imagine this is my bar. Imagine the chainsaw is here in this end. Well, I've had guys tell me, hey, you're running your bar backwards. And I said, well, there's a reason for that. Even though the chain actually cuts this way, let's say, and it's rotating like that, and I have the bar backwards, I tell them, well, what I'm trying to do is evenly wear my bar. Now, in this particular bar, you'll see that there's wear right here, and all along the edges here. And I'm going to flip it over, and now you're going to see it more apparent. Okay, now you see wear right there, along here, and down here. So by rotating your bar, what you're doing is you are wearing the bar on both ends. Now that does a couple things. First of all, you're creating a lot of heat because of friction as the chain rolls over this bar, right? And so what will happen over time if you never ever flip this bar is you're just going to get wear on this side, on the bottom of it. And what that could do is it can lead to untimely demise of your bar. The reason is it's not getting even heat distribution. Most of the heat is going to be created here where you're cutting, okay, against the wood. A lot of friction there from the chain to the bar, all of that have you. So by flipping the bar like this, you're actually saving the life of the entire bar. Because one of the things is if your bar starts bending, warping, you might create smoke as you're chainsawing. As you cut, your cuts are going to start going one way and uneven. It's not going to cut perfectly straight down because, yeah, that bar is damaged and now you're going to have to replace it. So by rotating your bar, you're going to save that bar from an untimely demise. And so the other thing is, as you can see, there's a lot more pronounced wear in the back of this bar near the chainsaw itself than the front. And there's two reasons for that. Number one is the most important. You don't want to work at the tips as much as you can avoid it. And sometimes you're forced to, but I would say for beginners, even intermediate guys, I would not use the front to ever cut. And the reason is because of kickback, obviously. You don't want that potential kickback to come back to your face, your legs, whatever, your arms, your shoulders. And so try to work in the back as much as possible. And when you are working in the front, and sometimes that tip area, you have to do what you got to do, you want to rev it slow, control that modulation, and then work that chain brake. And that way you can do it as safely as possible. Now, the other thing about this bar to kind of keep it going as long as you can, and this particular tip, I've never ever seen people do. Even the professional guys really never really mention this. And that's an important thing for ensuring that your bar lasts for a long time. And so this is it right here. Now this blade, as you can see, has been used much more than all three of these. This is a 20 inch, that's a 25 inch, that's a 28 inch. And what I'm about to show you is something that you should really keep an eye on. And so if you take a wrench or even your fingers and you just kind of glide your fingers over the edge, okay, like this one is smooth. This one I can kind of feel a little bit of something. And this one, I mean, I'm literally feeling a lip right here. Okay, I don't know if I'm gonna show that properly, but just trust me on this, there's a lip on there. And the reason why there's a lip is because as the chain goes around, it compresses the bar down. And as you tighten it more, because you know you don't want your chain to fall, so you're gonna occasionally watch for your chain to get loose, and you're gonna tighten that chain. And what that does over time, and especially if you over tighten a bar, so you should never over tighten the chain on a bar, but let's say you do it, it happens, whatever, right? That's going to increase your likelihood of squishing down that bar metal onto the bar. And so you'll get a lip, right? And so what you want to do is file that down while you're actually working. And when you can't do that, when the lip becomes too egregious, then what you want to do is take a grinder to it. And a quick word about grinding. So you want to use a grinding disc, okay? You don't want to use a cutting disc like this. This metal cutting disc, it's fractured and it broke. I left it in the bag and stored it that way. That was my fault. But you can see if you're working with this trying to grind it down, this can flick off and really, can hurt you pretty badly. So you don't want to work with a cutting disc, you want to work with a grinding disc. And so what you do is you come over here and you grind that metal down, okay, to flush. And then so from this side, you grind that down. And then you want to grind also this entire flat end down, so that your chain rides properly and works for you well, and you're creating less friction, right? And your bar is gonna last longer. Now, there may be a point in time where you might have to get rid of your bar because of this situation. So the first is, I told you, it warps out because of heat, whatever, you stuck it on something and you bent the bar. Don't try to bend it back. I mean, it's basically toast at that point. Now, you can bend it back in little areas where, let's say you hit something, you can kind of bend it back with your wrench like that and just make sure that there's nothing in the groove. But when you get into a situation like this, now you got an iffy story. So what happened with this bar is I hit a nail pretty hard and the chain kind of bounced in there. And so it created this kind of rift, and you can see parts of the metal, it actually rubbed down, and parts of it kind of came up and created a lip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grind that down and then grind it flush, and then ensure that I have a good groove in there so that my chain can ride. Now, even that is a little tricky. But at some point, I'll see if I can save this or not. And it's going to be determined based on how much of this channel I have left in here. And so right now, yeah, I may be able to get it going, and I may be able to use this bar a little longer, but hey, that's what happens. Sometimes you do have to replace a bar. But at any rate, with those tips, flipping your bar, okay, and not over tensioning your chain, and then finally checking for how much of a lip you've created, and taking that down with a file or a grinder, those three steps will really ensure the longevity of your bar. And that's what you want to do, because obviously you don't want to spend money on buying a new bar. It could be, anywhere from 50 bucks to 100 bucks, whatever it is. And so, yeah, spend it on your chain. Don't spend it on your bar. Alrighty, shalom.